we still seem to be gathering. Good morning. It's good to gather and to be together again. In taking time from our busy days and all our busyness to sojourn here with each other, that is truly refreshment for our souls. And in being together, we embody community, the beloved community we are and wish to be. And we grow in strength and energy to help build the beloved community beyond these walls. For we are Shawnee Mission, Unitarian, Universalist Church. Whoever we are as individuals, whomever we love with all our hearts, wherever we are on our life's journey, we are welcome here and we are welcoming too. Visitors and newcomers, you are most welcome here. There is room for you here, and we are glad to have you. Come join us after the service for cookies, coffee, and conversation following the service in our social hall. Those watching from home or in some far-off place through YouTube, we don't see you here, but we do see you here, and here we feel your presence. Say hi in the chat. And now all here, rise as you were able, move about the hall, and greet your neighbors with a hearty howdy-do. It's good to be here. It's good to be here together. I have one sort of announcement and one sort of introduction. So let me get to those. First, the introduction. As you may have noticed, because of the glare coming off both of our heads, neither of us is Reverend Rose. Lloyd Gow, a member of the church, comes from a large blended family from a small town in Texas, has served his country, our country, in the U.S. Army, and teaches now at the Army Management Staff College. He lives here in Overland Park, and he is a proud booster of the Soul Matters group. So he will be our officiant today. And one of the great things about going to a UU church is we get to hear from a variety of voices. The sort of announcement is that Kevin Hobbs will be in the lobby if you need to find out about mounting the next show for the gallery out here, or just information on how to do that. So he's going to give information on that. So you just see Kevin Hobbs, who will be much more eloquent in expressing himself than I just was. That is it for announcements. Oh, we do go right there. Okay. All right. Hear these words of Kenneth Patton. We arrive out of many singular rooms, walking over the branching streets. We come to be assured that brothers and sisters surround us to restore their images to our eyes. We enlarge our voices in common speaking and singing. We try again that solitude found in the midst of those who with us seek their hidden reckonings. Our eyes reclaim the remembered faces. Their voices stir the surrounding air. The warmth of their hands assures us and the gladness of our spoken names. This is the reason for cities, for homes, for assemblies and houses of worship. It is good to be with one another. In that spirit of togetherness, come let us worship together. The opening hymn will be hymn number 347 in the gray hymnal, Gather the Spirit. Jen Nelson will be lighting the chalice. As Jen lights the chalice, let us affirm that love is the doctrine of this church, the quest for truth is its sacrament, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge in freedom, to serve humanity in fellowship, to the end that all souls shall grow into harmony with the divine. Thus do we covenant with one another. And now it's time for all ages.
Yes, at this time I'd like to invite all the children to come forward for time for all ages. Welcome. Hello. All right, we also got some new faces. I'm excited to meet you all today. All right. There's this phrase in Unitarian Universalism that I hear a lot. In fact, our music director, Daniel, included this phrase in a song he wrote and we sang last week. It goes like this: "We are widening the circle. There is room here next to me." I hear this phrase, widening the circle, a lot. In fact, let's see if we can get in a circle right now. Let's move around to get in a circle. Yeah, come around here, get in a circle. Great. All right, that's better. I'm going to say those song lyrics one more time, and I want you to think about what they mean. We are widening the circle. There is room here next to me. What do you think widening the circle means? Yeah. There's room for everyone. Yes. Any other thoughts? When you hear widening the circle, what do you think that means for our church, for our faith? Yeah. There's room for new people. Yeah. The what? Yeah, the community, we're going to get bigger. There's room for everyone. Perfect. Let's see if we can widen our circle. Oh, Ben. Benjamin Cole Jones. Thank you so much for introducing yourself. I think maybe he feels welcomed. All right. Can we widen our circle? How would we do that? Maybe move back a little bit. There we go. All right, there's room if anyone wants to join our circle. Aw, Jen's gonna join. Wonderful. All right, we got another person coming. Welcome to our circle. Why do you think it's important for us to widen our circle here? Hi, Jim. Yeah, it brings in more perspectives. Perfect. I love that, Norman. Any other why it's important for us to widen our circle? Yeah, Jen. We're stronger together than we are apart. I love that. One more? Why is it important for us to widen our circle? Ben. When we widen our circle, we widen our kindness, and we're kind to everyone's welcome. I love that, Ben. Thank you for sharing. I want you to think about for a moment the people in your own circles, because we have our own circles. These are people we include and welcome in our lives. Your circle, it probably includes your family and your friends. So take a moment just in your head, think about who is included in your circle. What do they look like? Your brother's in there? How old are they? Think about the people in your circle. How old are they? What do they look like? My brother is 8.5. 8.5. Now for a moment, I want you to just, in your head, think about who is missing from my circle? Who is not included in my circle? I was thinking about my circle growing up and who I created room for. And I realized oftentimes people in my circle looked a lot like me, acted like me, were interested in the same things, identified themselves in the same ways. There wasn't a lot of space in my circle for others or differences. And that's pretty common. But as I've gotten older, I've realized that my circle of people is also kind of boring. For example, most of my circle has included people my own age. I went to school with people my own age. I've worked in spaces where most of the people have been my age. And really, the first time I've worked and been in community with people that aren't my own age, besides my family, has been this place. Usually, in my circle, the people that were much younger than me or much older than me were my family members. But in this community, I have built relationships and learned alongside people of all ages, including you all and you all. And I was thinking about that, and a friend I've made in this community, who I just absolutely love, is 40 years older than me. This friend is so funny and smart. And I typically hate talking on the phone, but when this person calls me, we end up talking for a long time. We share stories, we discuss what we've been reading, and she always challenges me to make connections to things that I've never considered before. I am so grateful that we both widened our circles to include each other. What are some things we can do to widen our circles and make people feel more welcome? Anyone have any ideas? Ben. You don't have a circle yet? Raise your hand if you would include Ben in your circle. Ben, look around you. Look behind you. There's a circle for you here. One thing we could do after the service is, the tables in the fellowship hall are already in a circle. Join a table with someone much younger than you or much older than you. Another way to widen our circles, just in general, visit new places, try new things. Learn from people who experience the world differently than you, like Norman said, different perspectives. And I think another great thing that we can do here is sing together. So Daniel, thank you for sharing those lyrics with us. All right, at this time, I'm going to release the children. We do have some new children today. So if parents who I haven't met before, if you want to follow me, I'll show you where your child can hang out, or they can hang out here, and where you could pick them up. So if your child wants to come with me, they are welcome. All right, please join me in singing the children out to their classrooms.
Go now in ease, go now in ease. May the spirit of love surround you everywhere, everywhere you may go.
We come to this place to see and to be seen, to teach and to be taught, to hear and to be heard. You may do the next part if you wish. Reach over and nudge the person sitting next to you. If you don't feel comfortable doing that, imagine doing that. I'm imagining nudging the people who are watching on YouTube. We're here together, gathered in peace and authenticity and intention. We also come to this place to share our joys and our sorrows. If you have a rare joy or a profound sorrow, please come forward over at the table and briefly share in 2 or 3 sentences your joy or sorrow and light a candle.
Good morning. My name is Mike Schimmel, and I have 3.5 joys I would like to share with you. The first is last month, Carol and I celebrated our wedding anniversary. Thank you, Carol, for 52 years. Thank you for not listening to my dad when we told him we were getting married, and he said, check the free column. The second one is we were unable to share at that time because the words of the marriage in sickness and health took new meaning as we dealt with COVID. And if anybody happened to find the 10 pounds I lost, you can keep them. We do not want them back. The second of the 3 is about our son who retired a month ago after 30 years as a Navy doctor. And we're looking forward to what steps he now will take because our daughter-in-law says he has to continue to work. And lastly, I'd like to share the thank you to Daniel Doss for your ministry and love of music and the joy that you share with us. Thank you.
My name is Nick, and I have a profound joy, and my profound joy is that I, on Tuesday, will be leaving to move into one of the dormitories at Truman State University. It's going to be an exciting new experience, and I am ecstatic to be moving on in my career path of choice and in my spiritual journey.
Hi, my name is Shawnee, and I'm lighting a candle for my mother who had a stroke, and they said she's stable, but she is not eating or drinking, so they think she may be near her end times.
There you go. My name is Tracy, and I have a sorrow. Well, number one, I just spilled my coffee. And I went and got what I thought would be my forever friend the other day. She's a Papillon Corgi mix. And I realized that living in an apartment, I'm just on the second floor. I'm very embarrassed and ashamed of myself that I took her on. So I guess we'll wait and see what happens. Just she needs a yard. she needs a yard. All right. Thank you.
And I too have a sorrow. My mother-in-law, Carla's mom, passed away, and I mean, the upside of it, I guess, was the time of the celebration of life was actually quite beautiful, and I think everyone got to share all sorts of humorous and tender stories of Edith Mahaney. So, in her honor. And I will light the remaining candles to represent all of those joys and sorrows that we carry in our hearts. They are no less real for being unspoken. Enjoy singing the words.
We hear your words. We witness your life in all of its heaviness, in all of its brilliance, and we carry your joys and sorrows in a shared heart.
Let us take a moment to come fully into this place. Place your feet flat on the floor. Take a deep breath. Close your eyes if you feel comfortable doing so. And relax into your chair, or in the case of one person, your zafu cushion. Allow your breathing to deepen beautifully. Wiggle your jaw. Melt. Notice an area that is tense or tight and embrace it. Let it know that it's okay to relax. Let the bustle of getting here, if it hasn't already done so, melt away and come into this space of holiness. Today, we think of those who have expressed their joys and sorrows, but we also think of the great joy that the Olympic Games have brought once again, and in more and more young people getting involved in the work of democracy. And come gently back into the room, and please remain seated for our meditative hymn, number 1009, in the beautifully colored teal hymnal, the meditation on breathing.
Breathe in, breathe out. Breathe in, breathe out. Breathe in, breathe out. Breathe in, breathe out. When I breathe in, I'll breathe out. When I breathe out, I'll breathe out. When I breathe in, I'll
Hear this reading from Engagement by Terry Tempest Williams. The human heart is the first home of democracy. It is where we embrace our questions. Can we be equitable? Can we be generous? Can we listen with our whole beings, not just our minds, and offer our attention rather than our opinions? And do we have enough resolve in our hearts to act courageously, relentlessly, without giving up, ever, trusting our fellow citizens to join with us in our determined pursuit of a living democracy? The heart is the house of empathy, whose door opens when we receive the pain of others. This is where bravery lives, where we find our mettle to give and to receive, to love and to be loved, to stand in the center of uncertainty with strength, not fear, understanding that this is all there is. The heart is the path to wisdom because it dares to be vulnerable in the presence of power. Our power lies in our love of our homelands. Question, stand, speak, act.
Second reading is from Kitchen Table Wisdom by Dr. Rochelle Naomi Raymond. Wounding and healing are not opposites. They're part of the same thing. It is our wounds that enable us to be compassionate with the wounds of others. It is our limitations that make us kind to the limitations of other people. It is our loneliness that helps us to find other people or to even know they're alone with an illness. I think I have served people perfectly with parts of myself I used to be ashamed of. Good morning. What a beautiful day to be together. You might have noticed that it's an election year. The stakes are high, and some have even said existential, but we have been in similar circumstances before. Since this month's theme is healing, when I first started thinking about how to approach the topic, I felt a connection between the individual healing that we have all experienced in one way or another and the greater collective healing that seems ever more necessary and perhaps ever more elusive across our communities and our society. As this is my first attempt at delivering a message to the congregation, I also felt it might be a good idea to stick close to a somewhat familiar ground. For those of you who were here for the service at the end of June, you might notice that some of the concepts I plan to talk about may have connections to Bernie's pre-4th of July message, but I don't think I'll be plowing the same furrow. At least a few of you have probably read Parker Palmer's book, Healing the Heart of Democracy. The courage to create a politics worthy of the human spirit. If you haven't, I recommend it. But if you only have time for the highlights, check out his short essay, 5 Habits to Heal the Heart of Democracy. Both of these resonated with me because I think the ideas he presents are just as applicable today as they were when he wrote them almost 15 years ago. I share Palmer's hope for our collective civic capacity to do better, to be better, and I also believe that we as Unitarian Universalists have always been called to remain engaged in the efforts to heal the wounds of our democracy in keeping with our UU principles. My own relationship with the practical application and the inner workings of our democracy is probably a little different than most. I took my first oath of public service in 1986, and due to a long series of fortunate events, a a fairly high tolerance for bureaucratic processes. The consistent support of you, my employers, and perhaps a lack of better ideas on how to make a political science degree pay the bills, I have been privileged to serve under the same vow for just over 38 years and counting. That's as shocking to say as it is to hear, I'm sure. Although even at the beginning, I had long been aware of the systemic injustice inherent in a government that was founded by white male landowning gentry who failed at the outset to recognize the inherent worth and dignity of all persons. I was nevertheless a believer in the potential of that democratic system and the mechanisms for improvement that were baked into it. At the beginning of that journey, my attitude was perhaps best described as raw and idealistic, but now, all this time later, my experience has helped reinforce my commitment and deepen my understanding of what Abraham Lincoln meant when he spoke about the better angels of our nature. When I read Healing the Heart of Democracy, it resonated with me for precisely that reason. Before I go any further, it might be best to clarify a few things for those who have not read the essay or the book, or whose memory is like mine. When Palmer says heart, he uses it in the context of the Latin cor, spelled C-O-R, which refers to our core, C-O-R-E, selves, where all of our ways of knowing converge: intellectual, emotional, sensory, intuitive, imaginative, experiential, relational, and bodily, among others. It is where we also get the word courage, and from which the concept of human wholeness stems. The heart provides the basis of our understanding, and Palmer's concept of the broken, open heart is inherently connected to this as well. It is that condition that allows us to experience what it truly means to be human. The broken, open heart is a topic deserving its own sermon, but in simple terms, it's a heart that has been conditioned by the suffering we encounter in everyday life: disappointment, dashed hopes, and lost love. It is a heart that is not fragmented, but is ready to hold the tension between suffering and joy. I see it as closely related to our long-term resilience as individuals and as a community. As Parker describes it, we don't understand why people respond so differently to heartbreak, but people whose hearts break open rather than apart are usually those who have embraced life's little deaths over time, those small losses, failures, and betrayals that can serve as practice runs. Parker acknowledges that this is not an approach that always works for everyone, such as those who may have borne the burden of successive or devastating losses. Healing is a unique journey for each of us, and we cannot retroactively apply it to past experiences of loss and grief. But the concept of the broken, open heart may offer insights to help us navigate our way forward, to help us prepare our hearts and those of others for the challenges still to come. And we are certainly facing many challenges, not just as individuals, but as a society. I wish I could say that the political realm, things in the political realm, have improved since the publication of Parker's book. That doesn't seem to be the case. Lately, there's been much discussion and reasonable concern about the emerging threats to our democracy. Some of those threats are not new and stretch all the way back to the beginnings of our experiment with democracy, evidenced by Benjamin Franklin's answer to Elizabeth Willing Powell's query about what the Constitutional Convention had wrought. His answer was, "A republic if you can keep it." At that time, the threats to democracy were both external and internal. Roughly a third of the delegates to that convention were in such disagreement with the Constitution that had been drafted, they walked out without signing their names. If you analyze the period between 1780 and the election of 1800, an election that was so inconclusive that it had to be thrown to the House of Representatives for a decision, you can begin to understand that the nation has walked the razor's edge of survival many, many times. Decades after the founding, the situation had changed quite a bit, and the continent seemed at least temporarily secure from external threat. At that time, Lincoln said, "At what point is the approach of danger to be expected? I answer, if it ever reach us, it must spring up amongst us. It cannot come from abroad. If destruction be our lot, we must ourselves be its author and finisher." When folks hear that in isolation, they often think it was delivered by Lincoln as president facing the interminable darkness of the Civil War. But he actually made that statement as a 28-year-old member of the Illinois state legislature 23 years before the Civil War. While these words may, in hindsight, seem prophetic, Lincoln was speaking at the time about widespread mob violence in Illinois between abolitionists and pro-slavery groups. The underlying message, however, is just as appropriate in our current environment. It is only we, the people, who can destroy or save ourselves. It all starts or ends with us. There have been several recurring primary threats to our democracy over the course of history. What has perhaps changed the most in the last several years is the convergence of four threats: polarization, conflict over who belongs, economic inequality, and the growth of executive power. Those are outlined in a 2023 study by Robert Lieberman from Johns Hopkins and Susan Mettler from Cornell, who found all four of these threats present for the first time in history, and they are combining in ways that exacerbate their effects. My goal in describing all that historical detail is just to add a bit of context to our present situation, to remind us that we have been gravely wounded before and yet have managed to heal ourselves in ways that have sometimes brought us incrementally closer to our lofty and unattainable goal of a more perfect union. Context can sometimes help us mitigate our fears. So how can we face those threats? There's no overarching solution or easy one. Like all complex problems, it requires us to roll up our sleeves and lead the change from our communities outward, from our families to our schools, congregations, neighborhoods, and other places where strangers gather. One way forward is to do the honest work of developing the habits of the heart that Palmer advocates. That term is related to Alexis de Tocqueville's work, Democracy in America. De Tocqueville found that life, church, participation in local politics, even reading newspapers to stay informed were surprising features of the lives of ordinary people. These habits shaped a thoughtful and reflective approach to life that impressed de Tocqueville and helped to establish and sustain our democratic institutions. You may sense the tension between Lincoln's concerns and de Tocqueville's more positive perspective, which were occurring simultaneously. The ability to hold those tensions in our hearts is important. The reading by Terry Tempest Williams emphasizes similar qualities, positive qualities, that we must establish and sustain if we are to protect and improve our way of life. Generosity, equity, deep listening, resolve, trust in our fellow citizens. The first of Palmer's habits of the heart is a realization that we are all in this together. That seems painfully obvious, but when you expand that idea to the point where it includes the other who does not share our worldview, then it gets a bit more complicated. Whether or not we agree on the specifics related to climate change, we will all suffer its consequences in one way or another. Whether or not we agree on the specifics on how best to shape economic policy or the equity of outcomes, we must all find ways to deal with those episodic downturns. As Palmer notes, we must save the concept of interdependence from the ideal of perfection that pushes it beyond the realm of reality. In order to do so, we must appreciate the value of otherness, which is Palmer's second habit. If our discussions only focus on those who are not in the room, it doesn't usually lead to effective outcomes. Partisanship is not a new phenomenon. People aligned themselves with political parties almost immediately after the founding of the country. But when partisanship devolves into demonization, that is when our democracy is truly in peril. If we continue to sort ourselves into groups where we only associate with others of the same social identities and political leanings, then establish an echo chamber of supporting news and social media where we isolate ourselves from competing ideas, it's easy to fall into the trap of believing it's us versus them, or worse, it's us or them. It's not enough to simply tolerate different views. We must learn to appreciate the value of otherness. It's certainly not easy. Many of us tend to live in the unrealistic but confident sense that we have fundamentally figured out the way things actually are, and that we have done this objectively. It's a form of egocentric thinking that is usually subconscious. I'm very grateful to have the opportunity to work in an environment and engage in a couple of social networks that, in which many folks, many of them, do not share my viewpoints. Full disclosure, that does not mean that I am immediately grateful when someone says or does something that conflicts with my motivational value system. My initial reaction can sometimes be to clench my jaw and squint my eyes and start thinking of our engagement as a contest of ideas. But it invariably works better when I take a deep breath and approach the interaction from what Dr. Leah Georges calls an attitude of joyful curiosity. When we ask others why they believe what they believe, and why again, until we fully understand, or we ask them how they arrived at a given conclusion or belief, and if we are able to listen deeply rather than listening to respond, then we preserve the chance to seek common ground and mutual interest. When we hurl our first conclusion at them, we change the dynamic. In my case, I often come away from those interactions with a sense of empathy for their concerns and a lot of questions about my own previously held beliefs. That is the source of my gratitude. I find that we often share similar hopes and fears. They want what is best for their children and grandchildren, just like me. They want their local communities to thrive and be free to practice their traditions and rituals. Many of them feel abandoned, ignored, frustrated, fearful, and heartbroken. Anger is often a symptom of brokenheartedness. Their capacity to trust has been damaged. We tend to agree on the what, but disagree on the how. We are lost in abstractions, but find connection in the concrete things that impact our daily lives. The more we engage in discourse, the clearer our understanding of each other becomes. The more we know about someone else's personal story, the more difficult it becomes to dismiss or distrust them. As Terry Tempest Williams said, the heart is the house of empathy whose door opens when we receive the pain of others. When we expand our circle, as Jen Lacey so eloquently wove into the All Time for All Children, when we expand our circles to keep us in contact with others who think differently, we preserve the opportunity to not only refine our own understanding, but to potentially serve as a catalyst that enables others to do the same. Disengagement deprives us of that opportunity. If we set aside the notion of changing someone's mind, we might be able to begin the process of opening their heart. The political issues we wrestle with are often complex and abstract, and they're often emotional more than intellectual. It takes perseverance and patience, but if we are able to approach them with a supple heart, we can sometimes make a connection. To be clear, I'm not necessarily talking about endlessly engaging with those who harbor extreme viewpoints, because that is not always a good use of our valuable time and energy. However, we should ensure we do not continuously expand our definition of extreme so that it engulfs all those with whom we disagree. While the numbers of extremists seem, at least anecdotally, to have grown over the last few years, my experience is that there is still a large, quiet group of folks across the breadth of the political, religious, economic, and academic spectrum who, like me, are just trying to figure out and make sense of it all. Engaging with the other can lead to the challenge of holding tension in ways that condition our hearts to break open rather than break apart. This is the third habit of the heart. In order to consciously avoid the trap of thinking in terms of either or, we must practice sitting with uncertainty and the realization that our truths are almost always incomplete. We become more comfortable holding the tension between is and ought, something that Palmer calls the tragic gap. On one side are things such as the reality of poverty and violence in the world, and on the other side are things we know are possible because we have seen them, such as generosity and peaceful resolution of differences. We must be able to hold the tension in our hearts because the gap will never be fully closed, because it is a part of the human condition. The big jobs of love, truth, and justice are perpetually unfinished. Pema Chodron describes a similar condition. We think that the point is to pass the test or overcome the problem. But the truth is that things don't really get solved. They come together and they fall apart. Then they come together again and fall apart again. It's just like that. The healing comes from letting there be room for all of this to happen. Room for grief, for relief, for misery, for joy. In order to find our way forward from this uncomfortable place, acting in ways that honor the tension we hold in our hearts, we must seek a renewed sense of personal voice and agency, which is the fourth habit of the heart. Many of us tend to see politics as a spectator sport, which, like the Olympics, only comes around every few years. We vote, perhaps we help others gain access to the ballot, and maybe a few of us take part in the campaign of a favored candidate, and then we wait for the next invitation. In part, that may be because we grew up in educational and religious institutions that did not encourage or empower our continued engagement, and we lack the confidence in our ability to affect change. What can enable us to find that voice is the support of a community. The capacity to create community is the final habit of the heart. As Palmer notes, we don't all have to abandon everything else in our lives and become full-time community organizers in order to fulfill the responsibilities of citizenry and to work towards healing the heart of democracy. Sometimes the support of just a few friends can make the difference in our ability to find our voice. The community in which we currently exist provides incredible opportunities for each of us to practice the habits of the heart. We can experience deep listening and strengthen our connection to others on a personal level. in the soul matters of the many other groups within the church. I will leave you with a more complete version of a quote I alluded to earlier, which for me captures the essence of the difficult task of healing our democracy and expanding our circles to include the other. It was offered in the spirit of healing from a heart that was already broken open even before the horror of the Civil War began. From Lincoln's first inaugural address, "I am loath to close. We are not enemies, but friends. We must not be enemies. Though passion may have strained, it must not break our bonds of affection. The mystic cords of memory, stretching from every battlefield and patriot grave to every living heart and hearthstone all over this broad land, will yet swell the chorus of the Union, when again touched, as surely they will be, by the better angels of our nature."
The work of the church depends on us. In fact, we make the church by what we do. Daniel Doss' music, Jen's, Time for All Ages, the work that Lloyd just did in enlightening us. But we also need your funds. And so with that, the offering will now be given and received in grateful appreciation of our shared values. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. And if you would open your hymnals, if you have them, or watch it on the board, hymn number 354, We Laugh, We Cry, we will only be doing verse 1 and verse 4.
We laugh, we cry, we live, we die, we dance, we sing our song. We need to feel there's something here to which we can belong. We need to feel the freedom just to have some time alone. But most of all, we need close friends we can call our very own. And we believe in life
as we leave this sanctuary, may we choose to ponder the question, what can I do today to make my heart supple enough to break open rather than to break apart? Go in peace.